In December of 2021, Our State magazine published a story that turned out quite different from what anyone expected. It was supposed to be about a man and his flair for playing Wurlitzer pipe organs. But when that man opened his heart and shared his secrets, the story became about much more. The joys and sorrows of families, regret and redemption, the wonder of Christmas. This presentation brings that story to life, told by the author, Billy Warden, and featuring the music of the man who inspired it, Mark Andersen. On what would be their last Thanksgiving together before the family's calamities, a giddy little boy named Mark clung to his elegant mother's hand as they ambled through the cozy downtown of a little city called Lumberton. The place could be any town in America, or in your imagination, where mothers stroll with their children by shops and parks and cafes. But the fact is, this was Lumberton in North Carolina, with a windy river and busy mills and farms fed by the river. The happy pair were on their way to pick out a Christmas gift, though Mark did not know it at the time, nor did he or his mother have any reason to think they'd soon be separated. The year was 1950, and the town teemed. The two strolled past the stately, white-columned mansion of former Governor Angus McLean, and by the red-bricked Lorraine Hotel, thrumming with guests checking in for the holiday. They were instantly recognizable, this mother and son, and townfolk smiled and waved. Mark's mother, Susan, never left their striking modernist home wearing anything but the latest fashions from Vogue magazine. Her 3-year-old son adored her. Their promenade ended at Harold's Music Shop, the regional destination for striving families looking to round out their picture-perfect American dream with a piano. Mark's family had already achieved the dream, at least as it was defined then. His hard-driven, thick-set father, Ed, owned a thriving General Electric franchise just down 4th Street from Harold's. Ed fully expected his son would grow up to take over the enterprise and build on the family's prosperity. Mark's maternal grandparents, Superior Court Judge Everett Johnson Britt and his wife Hesba, lived next to his house in an ornate 13-bedroom mansion built and painstakingly perfected 100 years or so before. Inside the music store, redolent with the scents of furniture polish and freshly printed sheet music, Susan selected a group of pianos in the French provincial style and invited Mark to test them. The boy, you see, was a prodigy, having received his first lesson at age 3 from the gifted Hesba. Ultimately, Susan chose a piano of distressed cherry wood and, unbeknownst to Mark, arranged to purchase it. The piano arrived at the family home after the boy had slipped to sleep on Christmas Eve. Mark, his mother cooed to him on Christmas morning, "Santa left something for you." The piano the music store Santas delivered to Mark's home that Christmas morning raised the curtain on a remarkable career that would include performances at Radio City Music Hall, Carnegie Hall, in Paris, and across the nation. But the instrument would also be an emotional lifeline for a little boy torn from his mother, and the beginning of a dream very different than that of his father. The family made a place for the piano in the living room at the bottom of the stairs, just a few steps beyond the front door, a prominent position in an unmistakable home. A decade earlier, tall and slender Susan, a dead ringer for the young Elizabeth Taylor, had traveled by train to the Chicago studio of Frank Lloyd Wright, where she commissioned one of the master's associates to design the house. Its sleek angles stood out in Lumberton, a projection, it seemed, of the charmed lives led by the family who inhabited it.
I'm just playing my piano while I sing the night away. Playing my piano while the other guys just play. Looking for that one new chord to take my breath away. Playing my piano, playing my piano, playing my piano while I sing the night away. I'm just playing my piano while I try to write a tune. Playing my piano every morning, night and noon. Trying to find new words about two lovers and the moon. Playing my piano while I try to write a tune. I'm just playing my piano, and I'm trying to play it best. Playing my piano just like Joplin and the rest. Thinking about Cole Porter, putting Gershwin to the test. Playing my piano, playing my piano, playing my piano, and do I love it? Yes!
That Christmas, the family expected to soon be blessed with another gift. Susan was pregnant. Young Mark hadn't taken much note. He was busy scampering between two sets of piano lessons, one from Hesba and one from the grand dame of music lessons, Evelyn Reynolds, the organist at nearby First Baptist Church. But as winter warmed into spring, Mark noticed his once vigorous mother gasping for air. In early March, Ed, 25 years his wife's senior, rushed Susan to the hospital, where she delivered another boy. 3 days later, back at their distinctive home, Mark's infant brother died in his sleep. The family had little time to mourn. During Susan's difficult pregnancy, alarmed doctors had drawn blood. Now the test results were in. A killer that had long terrorized the country was savaging Susan's lungs. Tuberculosis. Years before Mark's arrival in the world, Susan had piloted a Red Cross ambulance. She transported injured soldiers to hospitals upon their return to the States from the grisly battlefronts of World War II. It was then that she contracted the highly contagious disease, though she did not know it at the time. Her delivery of Mark had been difficult, complicated by symptoms of the killer inside her, growing undetected alongside her child. Though untreated, the symptoms receded. Tuberculosis, however, is persistent, a dark shadow. While it may fade, it will likely loom again. As bright blue, pink, and purple hydrangeas bloom throughout their yard, Ed helped Susan pack a suitcase and whisked her to a live-in sanatorium in a North Carolina city called Southern Pines. Mark was at his grandparents' mansion next door. He returned home to find his mother gone and his world transformed.
I stand alone, my heart in my hand. I can't go on, I won't understand. A new life, a cruel life, a life without you. Alone with my heart, with no one to care, I reach out and no one is there. Alone with my dreams, with nothing to share, my song seems to drift on the air, and the night so long when there is no song anywhere. My heart used to sing, and the thought of it, the music that made was my song. Now I'll travel on, just like at the start, although my poor soul's torn apart today. I'll go on and carry my song alone with my
Elation and anticipation had given way to dread and absence. The colors faded. The splendid home seemed suspended in a void. To many in this small town in the 1950s, good fortune meant God was rewarding you. How wonderful. But misfortune, disease, or an untimely death meant God was leveling a punishment. Mark's father, a serious man who grew up toiling on family farms, stewed in the stress and sadness. Ed had been born in the late 1800s and carried with him what the family called the old ways. As the man of the troubled house, he could not afford to show emotion, to show anything but strength. Every day, after working in his shop, Ed drove his blue and white Buick Roadmaster to visit Susan, not knowing for sure if she would still be there, alive, waiting with welcoming eyes framed by dark circles. Whatever he felt, Ed kept it between himself and the God he prayed to every night. And though summer had ignited, Mark's house was now a cold place. More than ever, the piano he had picked out with his mother beckoned him. He practiced at every possible moment until his increasingly remote father forbade it when he was at home. Undaunted, Mark ensconced himself at Hesba's piano next door. There, he played the French love songs his grandmother adored, especially Alice Bluegown, and for his grandfather, infantry marches from World War I. For both of them, the sacred, Handel's Messiah. As the evening news chronicled the American-Soviet rivalry of the 50s, an emotional Cold War settled in between Ed and Mark. The father urged the son to play sports, to learn how the rough and tumble world really worked. The boy wanted only music and the connection it provided to his much-missed mother. More than a year crawled by. Then, with another Christmas approaching, Mark received an early gift. Enfeebled by surgery that removed 2/3 of a lung, Susan returned home in the fall of 1953. To the fractured family, it felt like a miracle. 6-year-old Mark was jubilant, but then distressed. Far from being her vivacious former self, his mother was bedridden. But the little boy noticed, that his mother's bed on the second floor was directly above the living room's piano. So he threw himself into playing for her old church hymns, particularly In the Garden.
I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
By Christmas 1954, Susan was well enough to fully engage in the season's festivities. Mark basked in the glow of the plump, multicolored lights on the tree and his mother's beaming smile. He celebrated by penning his first all-original composition, On a Christmas Night.
As Christmas time again draws near, and our hearts are filled with so much cheer, there are snowflakes in the air, children everywhere who laugh and sing. The mistletoe is bringing dreams of those cozy little fireside scenes, and the magic of the night makes our love shine bright like moonbeams. Memories throughout the year of those loved ones who are now so near makes it easy to believe, easy to receive the joy of a star shining in the night, and the warmth of a candlelight, and the love that shines so bright on a Christmas night this year.
During his mother's nearly 2-year absence, the boy had blossomed into a virtuoso. Though only 5, he entered a piano competition for teenagers and won. The prize included an opportunity to perform with the North Carolina Symphony at Raleigh's imposing Memorial Auditorium. Susan rallied her strength to attend. Ed stayed home. So it went with the boy and his father. After attending East Carolina University, Mark shared his wish to transfer to a conservatory. Prosperous Ed refused to help pay for it. So Mark earned a full scholarship to the American Conservatory of Music in Chicago and went anyway. The boy grew into a young man who crossed the ocean to study at the Paris Conservatory and eventually looped to New York to work as an arranger for NBC, the national broadcasting company. Every day was a parade. Scores for commercials, Christmas specials, sparkling productions at Radio City Music Hall. But wherever he went, whatever he did, Mark could not escape the specter of his father, deriding it all as foolish. In 1976, Regal Carnegie Hall invited Mark to perform. Susan made the trip up, and for the first time, so did Ed. Surprised to see him, Mark still felt the familiar chill in his father's demeanor. Across the plush backstage room, father and son warily eyed each other. Finally, father stiffly asked son, "How much are you being paid tonight?" Mark answered, $23,000. That's more than $100,000 in 21st century dollars. The energy changed. Ed took a beat, then marveled, "I can't think about how many years it took me to make that much money." square-jawed, traditional Ed. The husband who watched his wife very nearly wither into non-existence. The father who buried his infant child had all along fretted that a career in music would leave his son without means, exposed, vulnerable to the world's cruelties. Now, witnessing that career flourish, he bestowed his blessing. "I was wrong," he told Mark. "You are where you're supposed to be." The glacial relationship thawed. Father and son grew closer and closer until Ed died in 1995. Susan remained Mark's most ardent supporter until she passed in 2013. 2 years later, Mark left his post as artist in residence at Daniel's Recital Hall in Seattle to return to North Carolina. In his semi-retirement, he took to restoring old Wurlitzer organs, serving as dean of the Central North Carolina American Guild of Organists, and of course, performing. He lives in the same Frank Lloyd Wright studio-designed home where he grew up. But much has changed in Lumberton, as it has everywhere. His grandparents' next-door mansion is now a parking lot. Harold's music store is long gone. And the fateful cherry wood Christmas piano is no longer in the living room. Mark and his sister Liz donated it to the First Baptist Church after the death of their mother. But he still visits the Christmas piano, letting himself into the ladies' parlor in the back, easing onto the bench and unleashing his hands in the joyous style of Hesba. Worshippers at First Baptist Church believe that the birth at the heart of Christmas holds the possibility of salvation throughout the ages. Perhaps certain Christmas gifts are a little like that too. They have their moment, Christmas morning of a certain year in such and such a place, but their magic, their power to transform endures. They can be, as can we all, vessels of grace.